Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gut Shot Podcast. I'm your host, Shamsul Sam. I'm here again with my good friend here, Jason Leong, our geopolitics expert. Today, as promised, we are going to deep dive into US-China dynamics as of today. Yeah, we've had the ASEAN summit pass by. We've discussed previously the repositioning of American focus on the Southern Hemisphere or the Western Hemisphere, so to speak, and their very outwardly economic policy of recalibrating their supply chain for not just strategic industries, but also their most important economic supply chains.
Yes.
Right? So, Jason, I think it's important for people to understand where China is at. And I've been talking about it for a while already in terms of the structure of the Chinese of China's economy. It is a bit different than the previous USSR, right?
Yeah.
It is I would call it a socialist capitalist system.
Yeah.
With a central authority, but a regional based autonomous powerhouses in each of its city or region, run by mayors and territorial chief,
Warlords.
that are competing against each other to increase GDP of their particular region. So, with that as an opening, okay, how do you see? We have seen that as being the success of China taking itself out of the Mao era, where poverty is one of the biggest success of human civilization in terms of taking its people out of poverty since its so-called unification and independence. Where do we see this from your point of view today? How has the evolution morphed within the last, let's say, 3 decades? Where are we today with China?
Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned how China brought a big number of its people out of poverty. I think let's just start with that.
Okay.
Maybe I need to debunk that kind of like a myth, because many people will always quote this and say China's greatest achievement is to bring 800 million of the people out of poverty. It is correct at one point in time, but for the past 10 years, it may no longer be correct. Because recently there was a statement in one people went through, the former Prime Minister who just died, Li Keqiang. Li Keqiang apparently in one of his speeches that long forgotten, actually criticized the Chinese economy. He said there is too much structural inequalities in the Chinese economy. And he quoted a statistic which is quite shocking. He said today, 600 million Chinese still earn less than 1,000 renminbi per month, 1,000 yuan per month, which is equivalent to about 500 ringgit per month. And that's below poverty level. What is our...
How many million?
Huh?
How many million?
600 million.
600 million.
600 million Chinese out of 1.2, say, assuming that they have a population of 1.2 trillion. So half of that population is still living below poverty line at only 1,000 yuan per month, which is like 500 ringgit per month. I mean, our poverty line is probably about, how much our poverty line in Malaysia? 750, 800. So, I mean, how can anybody really live at 500 ringgit? So So that was an internal criticism. So if that is the case, that means a lot of those people who were brought out of poverty by China once upon a time may have relapsed back into poverty because of the inherent inequalities in the structural part of the economy of China. The rich are getting super, super rich, but those who are really poor are also getting very poor because there is no real social security system in China. So everybody has to be dependent on its own savings. And you are also right in the sense that the provinces in China are governed by their own provincial governments, and they have got various warlords who will only take care of their own province economically. So they will do things, they will build infrastructure to take care of their own provinces so that their numbers will go up into whatever GDP or so-called economic growth and all that. But it is very uneven kind of growth, right? So that is an area of concern actually for China. Infrastructure building to boost up the GDP in terms of construction, property, infrastructure, that's the easiest way to go about. But does that eventually translate into the real benefit for the ordinary man in the street? That's another question. Because not every man in the street will be able to benefit from the construction and from the property boom and property development.
It's this I think the structural issues that we talk about is rarely spoken out. I think the impression and the narrative, I mean, China for all, I mean, at 18 plus trillion GDP, that's a huge economy.
Yes.
Right? And if you talk about population of, let's take their number, their statistical number themselves at 1.4 billion population, right? And if you take half of that, let's even say they are not, and this is coming from their own leader that during the turmoil years of and they need to do something about it. Okay, but since then, I think what we have seen is actually more building to the point where we know that construction was the first bubble that burst with respect to overcapacity. Yeah. I don't know. The last number I heard is that the amount of housing construction is probably 3 times the number of the population itself. I don't know how correct I am. Do you have the approximation of that? Or I mean,
I can tell you about one particular city called Dongguan.
Okay.
I was quite involved in the Malaysian Dongguan kind of relationship. Dongguan is just one of the cities that is further down from Gongzhou.
Okay.
And it was technically a city which was an industrial area. There were close to about 4,000 factories. Malaysian people were running there, to set up factories, MOU. There was even a Malaysia Dongguan Association. And a lot of things were buzzing. That was way in the late 90s, before even 2000. And it was a city, when I went there and looked at the peak of it, so many factories all over. The last time I went back was at 2011. And 3,000 factories closed down. And it technically became overnight become like a ghost town, or rather a ghost industrial estate. A lot of factories there, 3,000 factories. So the whole thing is...
What year?
2010, 2011.
2010, 2011.
Yeah. So that was like more than 10 years ago. Even that, so there is one clear example, anecdotal though it may be, but I was there, I saw it. And Malaysian who invested money setting up factories there, all of them got burned. And even now, the current Malaysian Dongguan Association is totally inactive. I'm a member of that. So there is no more trade delegation there, no more investment. And it's true, right? So this is just about the factories. What about those cities which are being built in terms of the condominiums and everywhere else? There are many ghost cities, ghost malls, even in China. Of course, those things are not very popular, and you may not see it on YouTube, but they are. And the overbuilding is, you see, this is actually a very complicated vicious cycle. Why the overbuilding? Because it is based on the provincial warlords. How does the provincial warlords make money for their SOEs, the state-owned enterprises?
Entities, yes.
Right, state-owned entities. And the provincial warlords are not businessmen or innovators or who can build factories and manufacture stuff. No, the easiest way is that the provincial warlords will sell the land, because land belongs to the state, right? So they will technically sell or lease the land, and to who? The best person to lease it to or sell to is the property developers, right? So every property developer in town, that's why the Evergrande, the Huayang, and all those Forest City, Garden City, well, all these big time developers, they were the one who bought the land from the provincial warlords, and they enter into some kind of JV and say maybe it's a 70-30 split. So if I build 1,000 units of apartments, 30% goes to the provincial warlords, and that is your profit lah. So. And in terms of that, so that means in terms of the SOEs, they survive, and the profit on the balance sheet looks good because they are getting something monetizing from the land. And it's also good for the developers because the developers themselves will use the land to be mortgaged to the banks, raise the financing, build the buildings, so they keep building. So as far as buyers are concerned, that is a secondary thing. If we keep building, we keep borrowing money, and then we keep building, and it is a vicious cycle. And you keep on going in one province, another province, and keep on and on. That is why when Evergrande collapsed, that was the biggest property developer in China, the total debt that they had was 300 billion. No way they can pay it.
300 billion is a third of our federal budget.
Yeah, right. And that is
not a third. I'm sorry. I mean 70%.
Yeah. So that was a debt that they actually collected over time. That is why it's just one developer. Recently, another one collapsed called Huayang. Also hundreds of a million and billion going on. So this is where it gets a bit, what do you call that, interesting, because again, China did not take the tough measures and say that we will do the tough thing and either we allow it to fail or we bail them out. Right? They did neither. It was probably too big to fail, because if it allows it to fail, then all the provincial...
but he failed.
Yeah, all the provincial SOEs will also fail.
Okay.
Right? So they can't allow it to fail.
But Evergrande failed. How do you... I mean, they allowed it not to be bailed out.
Technically, a lot of people saying that they don't have money to bail it out, because you can't bail, it's too big. It's too big. Right? So they just postpone it, kick the can further down the road and say that we will try to restructure and goes on. So as of now, nobody really knows how much of it has been restructured. As and when they can, they will restructure, and then so there is no real tough decisions to make. Nobody wants to make that kind of unpopular decision, not Xi Jinping. Right? Yeah. So,
Jason, my understanding of China political and political system is this mandate from heaven, right? And the legitimacy of the one-party rule and the leader is the economic situation on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, you can and you can only do that so much, and until we are, especially now after Xi Jinping took off the term limit for the presidency,
Yeah.
and the guardrails that were put on by Deng after Mao, right? So when we talk about construction as one sector of the economy, that's like what, 25-30% of the GDP of China, right?
Closer to 30%.
Closer to 30% of
Yeah.
China's GDP. We've got, from we all understand, the Chinese people mainly puts their saving into property sector. Sounds like our people,
Yeah.
to a certain extent, right? I mean, we believe in ownership of property and ownership of land, and we keep, doing that to a certain extent, but not to the extent that the Chinese people has actually embedded it into their economic structure, So that means you've got loss of savings of ordinary people, and that may be why. Who was that you were mentioning? The previous leader who were making the
former Prime Minister Li Keqiang.
Li Keqiang. I remember now.
Yeah, Li Keqiang.
Li Keqiang. So I think, I wonder whether that particular warning, whether it went unheeded or was it too late. I'm not sure.
I think it was probably too late because he could not make the reforms. He's PM, but he's still not number one, right? But you brought a very interesting point, because a very important point. A lot of people and analysts will always say that China's greatest achievement is this household savings. Household saving rate is very high. Correct. But you are correct in pointing out that those savings have now actually been invested into failed property projects. Where are the savings? There are no more savings. Those savings are all put in, because all those guys who have got savings went into speculative investment, and they were sold.
Sounds like the property bubble in the US.
So it's like, wow, it's buy investment, buy a property, you can make money out of it. And many of them were caught, because when there was simply no demand and the property bubble burst, there's no demand, the value dropped. Just like Hong Kong. You see, most of them put savings in, took a big loan from the bank to cover and pay for the apartment. So the one that gets paid is the developer, but then the one holding the thing, the can is the poor house owner, and with negative equity. Look at the typo fire recently in Hong Kong. How many of them is cursing and swearing? Because the typo housing, the 4 condominiums that was on fire, was already negative equity, which means the property has depreciated so much that if they have taken a $1 million loan to buy the property, today the property has depreciated to something like only 700,000, and your outstanding loan with the bank is 1 million, and they are still paying.
You still have to pay for it.
They are still paying, right? And we're still on top of that. Now there's a fire. So 700,000 may not even worth it. It's going to go down further. So this is what is happening in China. And we can actually get a glimpse of that at Forest City in Johor. They did the same thing.
That's where I would jump to there later, which is what I call exporting the problem, the systemic problem in China. But let's I think the situation has accelerated itself with Trump's being. I look at Trump as a catalyst in terms of exposing all the problems in developing nations. If you ask me, right? If you don't have your structural issues, structural and real economic policies in place to be able to deliver to your people. Construction is one. We all know that the solar panels that are they are the biggest manufacturers of solar panel. I'm just taking sector by sector as an example, because these are red flags when you talk about the renewables, sector.
Yes.
I mean, EV and solar panels are now such an overcapacity situation, right? Not just in terms of the solar panels that are being dumped. It's literally a dumping situation because they have produced and there are not enough buyers in the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Batteries, the EV batteries, the EV cars.
Yeah.
They are number one in domestic consumption of their EV production, and that cannot even handle their own production today.
Yeah.
And that's going to be another these sectors are another bubble that is going to burst.
It is already bursting because China controls 60% of the global capacity production of EVs. 60% not EVs, EV batteries. So you're talking about EV batteries. You're also talking about the battery energy storage system, the BESS, that is used for power plants and all that. And it's huge capacity, overcapacity. I know that for a fact because I have got at least 2 companies who have come to me for advice, Chinese companies. But there's nothing much that I can do for them because they are here in Malaysia. They're trying to technically do the dumping of the BESS and the battery energy storage system, which is getting quite popular now in Malaysia. As you can see, people buying batteries for the homes and all that. But they are actually producing, one of the company that came to me actually is producing it and selling it at a loss. So I say, how can you do business? Your production cost is higher than your actual revenue cost. He said, we have no choice. If I stop production, I'm going to lay off 10,000 people in China, and that's unacceptable. 10,000 people on my factory is going to go out of job. So let me continue to produce. I maintain the production and operation of my factory. The jobs are secured, and I'm taking out whatever that's been produced. We are just dumping it and we sell. Whatever money we can take, we will roll it back into the factory and keep going on, and we see how long we can continue. Until such time, as far as possible, we'll keep those jobs. Because it's a no-no. I mean, unemployment situation in China is already pretty high. Youth unemployment is already very high, right? So can you imagine that this is going to happen? In fact, the CEO, I met him only not too long ago, about a month ago, in November. He said a lot of those people working in China, those working, whether it's white-collar or blue-collar workers, in November, they are already making their trip home to the kampong, back to the hometown. Normally, you only see that in January, towards the Chinese New Year, where everybody will make that pilgrimage home, and then the trains, the planes, and all the transport is all jammed up. But as early as November, last month, they were already going home. Why? He said.
Why?
There are no more jobs in the city. They lost their jobs. And they can't afford to pay the rent. And they can't afford to keep with the standard of living or the cost of living to survive in the city. So better to go home now in November rather than wait until January and then go home. Might as well go home, stay at the hometown, original home, ancestral home, and do some simple farming or whatever, agriculture. They are going back there. So because this is the situation in China now. So how many of them will go home and not ever come back? We don't know. As far as the youth are concerned, many young people have also gone home because there are simply no prospects for them. That's why youth unemployment is so high. At one time was as high as 24%. That the Chinese government decided to stop publicizing the statistics because it is too negative. They actually refuse to publish the youth unemployment. So many of the young people have gone home and become professional sons and professional daughters.
I mean, one of the biggest problem I find in analyzing China is data. I think because the data is state controlled.
Yes.
And if I hear popular or YouTube discussions sometimes that are outside China, I get the feel that, it is too negative or anti-China. So, I mean, I don't know. All I can say is I'm trying to find a balanced outlook. And that's why we are talking the way we are talking. Because, I mean, I've got friends in China who are, like yourself, you have connections who are doing business in China.
Yeah.
Okay? And they are telling me the same thing.
Yeah.
This is the difference between what people go and visit.
Yes.
And people who are actually doing business in China with real connections that they cannot speak out.
Yeah.
All right? So I get this kind of feedback, that's one. And then I gleam through what I call, I look at red flags. Anyway, I look at an economic data set or economic scenario and I compare, I start analyzing in between the lines, as they say.
Yeah.
So if you have an overcapacity of construction, SOEs that are being propped up by state money.
Yes.
Because that's where the taxation money goes to.
Yeah.
It comes from the banks, yes, but the banks are also mainly state-owned.
Yeah.
So people don't get this part, which is you need to analyze the back end of all this behind the glimmering shimmer of the cities and the high-speed rail networks that are actually most of them not making money. You can only kick the can down the road long enough before reality bites. And the construction sector is the first reality to bite.
Yeah.
I believe the renewable sector or the green sector is the second one to go down. The infrastructure has already gone down, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Right? Population migration back. They call, what's funny, Jason? I never realized this. They were talking about migrant workers. I say, where do you have migrant workers in China? I didn't realize that when they say, and then they explained to me that what they call migrant workers are basically those coming from the villages or other regions into the city to work.
Yeah.
Right? And these guys are finding no work anymore.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're returning home.
Yeah.
So these are flags that are coming out. And it's exacerbated by how you explain, which is the people who, the regional leaders, the mayor must ensure these people keep on working. The SOE, these are their KPI by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes.
Right? In order for them to move forward.
Yeah.
They get promoted, they leave their problem behind, the next guy come along, goes through the same cycle.
and they have to show the report card that show that they are making profit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think you can only show the profit for so long. You're running on cash flow.
this is where there is such a thing called the local government financing vehicle.
Okay.
LGFV, local government financing vehicle.
Okay.
These are the vehicles that have been created
Uh-huh.
to finance the SOEs.
Okay.
So they are also very smart. Why do they create these special vehicles to borrow from the banks? Because these vehicles actually borrow and they are off-budget agencies. So whatever borrowings from these LGFC, local government financing vehicles, are all off-budget. And this is what we call the shadow banking of China, which very opaque, not transparent. We don't know how much they have borrowed. So they have
So
been,
it's off the federal budget.
yes, it's off. This is not counted as part of the budget. So when they say that, well, we have a huge what we call that revenue debt ratio.
Debt to revenue ratio.
Yeah,
revenue to debt ratio.
So
either way lah.
it is, you see, because people have tried to calculate that amount and they say that the shadow banking debt is as high as US 13 trillion, not billion, US 13 trillion that has gone in. And these are not reflected in the budget. So if you actually add in the actual public debt plus the quasi-public debt owned by the LGFVs plus whatever off-budget agencies, all these debts actually exceeds 100% of the GDP. So debt to GDP is more than 100%. And that is a number, it cannot be official because there is no official agency begin to I mean, as you say, data from China is always very little. You can't get very much of it. So World Bank and other IMF, they have been tracking this as much as they can. And these are numbers which are actually very disturbing because these local government financing vehicles don't have any more cash flow, no viable cash flow, because the property market has collapsed. So they cannot keep selling the land anymore. There's no revenue. And even if they do build, who's going to buy those apartments? Right. So this is, in a situation, is a vicious cycle. I don't think China is facing a Lehman Brothers kind of moment that's going to collapse, but they will have very serious economic challenges. And this is actually one of those many economic challenges. And like you mentioned, that those people who have come out from the rural areas to work in the urban cities have now gone home because there are no jobs in the cities. It's true, I mentioned the young people have also gone home, living as professional children. That means they are actually paid a salary by the mom and dad, so that they will accompany mom and dad to do things several hours a day. And they get free lodging, they get free food, and they get a salary and allowance. So I mean, mom and dad is happy because they have the children back with them. But the kids, what kind of future do we have? They don't have much. I mean, professional children. Can you imagine?
Well,
That's a job.
Then it goes back to because this is such an export-oriented economy. You don't have much. Internal consumption, and then your internal consumption then becomes negative, because why? Your purchasing power is actually not there.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people I find are impressed with the amount of spending power of tourists, so-called, that goes out and spend. But I always say this: imagine that 10%. Just take 10% of 1 billion people.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 100 billion. 100 million people.
Yeah.
That's the kind of spending power of an average middle class Malaysian that we see go to holidays in Turkey, holidays in China itself, holidays in Japan, right? In Australia, and we spend. whatever we want to spend, but we know how to spend, right? And we know how to come back and work our small 13,000 US dollar per capita GDP, which is what China has. You know, if I were to take that $1 trillion compared and I say, okay, their GDP is about ours or so, all right? That's why I keep saying I have this red flag in the sense that by right, if I see gleaming cities of networks of high-speed rails, production of high-tech EV vehicles, you know, solar panel. I expect a society that has a per capita GDP at least 3 times higher than what we are looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So when that number does not appear, and when they have that causes that gives me a red flag. I want people to understand that part, which is why, you know, we are trying to unpack this in a more in-depth manner. Yeah. The other thing that becomes a problem then, actually, you have to export your dumping is exporting your problem.
Yeah.
Because you can't afford your people not to have work.
Yes.
Right? And then you have to export your workers as well to the BRICS country.
Yeah.
And I thought, to me, the BRICS initiative is an export of the Chinese economic model to other developing countries.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yes.
You know? And at the end of the day, what you're doing is building capacity of infrastructure that the people in that area cannot afford.
Yeah, we have seen those. The Sri Lanka airport is totally underused. Malaysia also is a victim because, like you say, they are dumping stuff in Malaysia. Steel is one of the main example. There was gross overcapacity of steel production in China. And China steel is so cheap. So they dump it. So Alliance Steel is here. And look at all the steel companies in Malaysia. All of them have collapsed. Right? Lion Steel, Mega Steel, all the William Cheng steel companies has collapsed. Southern Steel, and even the old steel company, what was that? Previously known as what? The one that was taken over by Maju Holdings. Pawaja.
Yeah.
Collapsed.
Pawaja was not
right.
Was not effective in the first place. It was
not effective.
GLC.
Plus some more with the overcapacity and the dumping lagi teruk. Kin Steel, so many of these steel factories cannot compete. So much so that the developers, the steel owners, steel factory owners in Malaysia technically filed a petition with the WTO and say that there was dumping. So damage has been done. You see, our whole steel factory, who does steel factory anymore in Malaysia? But Alliance Steel is still strong. Standing very strong in Kuantan. So that is one, what do you call that, overcapacity. And now we are seeing increasingly in all the malls and the urban cities in Malaysia, the export of Chinese restaurants. So Chinese hot pot restaurant, they're opening up everywhere. Chinese bubble tea, in the Mistre and even our Luck-In coffee and everyone all coming here. Because those are also, in a way, overcapacity in China. So they are repeating those chain of restaurants in Malaysia and competing with our own Malaysian-owned restaurants. And some of the Malaysian restaurant owners are complaining and say, how can we compete with these Chinese restaurants? Because they're cheap. Their things are very cheap. Right? Even the coffee is cheap. Even the tea is cheap. Right, so everything they are competing. So is that going to impact our local hawkers and our local restaurant operators, mainly the Chinese restaurant operators?
Well, I mean, let's. I think I take more your conclusion on the steel industry in Malaysia, because I remember when Pawaja was coming up. and our steel factories, the smaller steel factories and all that. I mean, they were doing well,
Yeah.
right? And our complaint as citizens is that we don't want to see a government bailout, right? Okay, of a white elephant project.
Yeah.
Okay, so today now actually we lost the steel industry
Yeah.
because we have imported a sector from a country that overproduces even for the global market,
Yeah.
right? Therefore, what you're looking at is a dumping situation below cost that none of us can compete with, and that's one sector, right? And I don't see where the policy is going to end or how we're going to do it, because, for example, in Africa, in Sri Lanka, and all that, when that comes along with corruption, that's another thing that we have to be worried about. Because why? It doesn't matter what the citizens are going to suffer through, because the people involved are not going to be concerned about what happens down the road. That we have already seen duplicated in Africa, in Sri Lanka,
Pakistan.
in Pakistan. Yeah, that's just naming a few, right? Not to mention the old USSR countries, right?
Yeah.
Where bricks infrastructure is being built. Zambia, I mean, I'm just going on top of my head. Kenya, on their railway system. I think but I think the reckoning is coming. If you ask me, the reckoning is coming, because why? Because the EU cannot afford to consume any more of cheap products that destroy their own industry.
Yeah.
I think South America is gonna do the same.
Yeah.
If not, but they are not as big a consumer. I don't know. I mean, if you ask me, and I've always said this, and this is my criticism of actually Mahathir's South cooperation focus.
Okay, South. Okay.
South focus. Okay. We became rich because of our industrialization and at that particular time, and then we went and take our money and start investing into developing the South countries, including doing oil exploration and whatnot, and none of them work out.
Sudan, for example.
Yes.
It's a major, terrible calculation.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened to all our Sudan?
Those are our money,
Yeah.
You think about it, right? Those are our money. So if people want to understand, we have gone through and we are suffering. Actually, we could have been a lot better if the money is invested into our own economy.
Yes. Either our own economy or economies that are actually
Providing returns.
more reliable.
Yeah.
At least the Commonwealth economies. I mean, we are investing in those parts of the world where the law is law of the jungle, and we don't even know what law they use. Sudan, and then after that they had a civil war, and then they had a partition into two Sudan, North and South. The oil is in the south, the port is in the north, and we dig the oil from the south and then we send it to the north for them to export. The north guys will say, 1 million barrels you send to me, actually there's only 600,000 barrels, okay? So they siphon off 400,000 barrels. What can you do about it? Because they are already at war, North and South Sudan. So we are caught in between, in the middle. And not just Sudan, Myanmar.
So we are basically looking at scale. When we look at China, what's happening, we're looking at that at scale,
Yeah,
at humongous scale,
yeah,
right? But they have successfully actually exported around the world. I mean, their trade surplus, they just reported a trade surplus of 1 trillion,
yeah,
right? And you have an youth unemployment of such figure.
Yeah.
The disconnect is so high,
yes,
Yeah. that I think the frame that is holding up this bubble is going to collapse sooner than later. And the biggest problem that you face is always when you have an authoritarian regime is actually when people really start not having employment.
yeah.
Forget about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because at one time there was a huge apprehension in China that when their GDP was like double digit at that time, the growth, 10%, 11%, 12%, and so there was a prevailing thought that China cannot afford to have a GDP that goes below 8%.
Now,
At that point in time, that
Yeah.
was like 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Anything, because the thinking was that if China's GDP were to go below 8%, there will be social unrest because people will lose their jobs and all that. But somehow, time has come now. Today, GDP in China is about 5%. It's really gone below. Even 5% is based
Debatable.
on official numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Because China's accounting is a bit of accounting acrobatics. Even BYD, because people are saying if they actually study the balance sheet of BYD, the most so-called successful EV companies in the world, and hailed by China as this is the top company. But if you look at the balance sheet of BYD, it's not sustainable. There's a lot of loans and a lot of debts. And the supply chain, some people have actually gone in and start calculating the component supply. And they say that the numbers don't add up. It would appear to be that BYD is being supplied components from another Chinese companies at really, really below bottom cost kind of thing. So if I'm BYD, I got 10 companies in China. I tell every one of you is supposed to supply to me $100, but all of you supply to me at $20.
Well, I think there's another portion of the story that I want to interject, which is the payment terms. You're talking about payment terms in excess of almost a year or more.
Yeah, payment term, and so at the end of the way, the one carrying
Can
the
you
burden.
imagine if you do that in Malaysia?
But China, you can do it because it's an autocratic system. So the one actually carrying the debt. So there's a transfer of all the loss to these 10 companies who are supposed to supply. And these are all your vendors, and all of them take the because you can't pay them and you won't pay them. Even if you pay them, you're paying them only 20% of what they actually supply you. So BYD profit margin and numbers and the balance sheet will look good because their cost is so cheap. And those cost is so cheap that it's unbelievable. People know manufacturing cars, your margin is so much, so cannot be that kind of super margin, right? So there is a way of, that's why I say it's accounting kind of acrobatics. They push it to another entity, and these are all entities that will no longer be if it go bust, it go bust.
Yeah,
Those
then
are
another
SOEs.
guy come in
That's it.
and try to do the business until they go bust again.
They go bust. So, but BYD will stand as very profitable and say that. So is it only sustainable in China with that kind of accounting system?
My only question to that is basically how long is that going to be sustainable when actually you are overproducing already? So there is a time. A time of reckoning will come where actually you yourself will have to roll back your capacity because the demand is not there.
Simply so.
You know, I mean, you are 30%, I mean, globally, as a manufacturing center or a production center for the whole world,
Yeah.
and the world cannot take that kind of you making money off me and I can't make money off you at all. You know, it's just not sustainable business model.
That is why when a business model becomes unsustainable, that's where dumping comes in. The dumping is at massive, very low price at a huge cost to the one who is dumping it. Well, but they dump it because there's one way to get rid of all their products, the excess
So let's
capacity.
look at the demographics then. If you're talking about, I mean, unemployment,
Yeah,
I mean, at a certain point, you know, people were saying that they were concerned about, at least in technology will take part of the job, regardless whether whatever, because of AI and whatnot. I don't know on that part. I'm like, okay, I'm open-minded on that.
yeah,
You know, so I'm not even going to count on that. You know, that your population can decrease, AI will take over part of the work, so you're going to be able to. But there is a limit to that too. But then demographically, right? When a society becomes two things, industrial, urbanized, which is what China has become and Malaysia has become.
yeah.
Countries like ours, countries like Japan, already see demographic decline as it is.
Yes.
And we do not have the one-child policy for 30 years
Yeah.
or 35 years,
Yeah.
right? So and that is going to put more constraint on, because now you need actually to have internal consumption.
Yes.
And you cannot regenerate that internal consumption because savings are gone. And then people are going to be,
We don't have enough people.
you don't have enough. Are you really going to have enough people? Where do you see the population at the moment? How is that number
This
looking?
is actually quite interesting because I've read some analysts, and one analyst actually pointed out a tough question. Because he said, now, China's one-child policy is about more than 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So he said, if that's the one-child policy, which means what is your population rate? If it's just one child, you need two to be the replacement rate. That means basically you need two child so that your population rate is growing at 1%.
That's a simple number calculation lah.
Right.
Yeah,
but if you have one child, that means your declining population rate is -1. Because you're short of one other child. Because father, mother, two to replace that.
But some people tell me that actually in the rural areas or in some other areas, they're actually having, they never adhere to the one-child policy.
Probably so. So that could be one explanation how China population actually grew. Because if you have a strictly one-child policy, China population would never have grown. Because it is that. So currently, even without the one-child policy, they have now abolished that policy, and they say that now they have more children, but it's a bit too late in the day. So because the people are also not getting married, and even if they do get married, the young people don't want to have children. So the current population rate in China is at -1. So that means
What's
you
the
are
fertility
declining.
rate like?
Yeah,
What's the fertility rate like?
-1. So which means this is basically
That's population rate.
fertility. I think fertility is actually -1. Basically, they're saying is that every couple they only have one child or maybe less than one, so or none
On average.
on average or none. So double income, no kid, that kind of thing, right? And so there is a population decline. Even if there is no population decline, there is an aging population. Because by 2035, apparently, there'll be at least 400 million Chinese who will be age 60 and above. So an aging population. So aging population would mean that the healthcare system would be definitely there will be a strain on healthcare system, and there will be fewer workers. Of course, you can have AI workers and robots, but there will also be slower growth because the social spending will be less. As people age, I don't think they want to spend so much. They want to take care of themselves. So there is this kind of thing. So if it is a shrinking, maybe population shrinking too fast and also aging too early.
That's a double whammy.
Double whammy. So, I mean, Japan we can see, is already an aging society, right? So Japan itself is already going through that difficult kind of thing. But Japan's consumption economy is much better than China's.
Well, I mean, when Japan hit their roadblock and stagnate for a long time,
Yeah.
they were already rich. They were like 40,000
Yes.
USD per
Yes.
capita GDP
Yeah.
at that particular time.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That is why when I look at the numbers coming out of China, just even officially, because I'm taking official numbers,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so I take it at face value because that's the only way we can do it,
Yeah.
right? So even if we take the official value number, the flag to me then becomes you have whether intentionally or unintentionally a devaluation of the yuan, or and actually a suppression of wage, whether it's direct or indirectly, systemic.
Yes.
You know, and that is a huge concern for that economy.
Yes.
I don't know who's going to tell Xi Jinping that he needs to reform without getting without getting pulled aside and said that you are or I mean, come on, if you're a billionaire like Jack Ma who built the biggest company in China gets
Alibaba.
slapped down.
Exactly. You see, so
Who's going to tell Jinping?
that is the cultural factor that is also a negative for China, because if you look at all the Chinese leaders, they are good managers, but they are not good leaders. You are not going to have an outstanding leader who can actually help the country to make that quantum leap up and get them out of trouble. They are all middle managers, very mediocre, managing stuff and keeping that the wheel keep turning and turning so that nothing is broken, and they keep doing that. So for a long time, they have been doing. The only one that actually made that huge quantum leap was Deng Xiaoping, who actually cleared up all the excesses of Mao, did all the reforms, and then started to put things in the right place and the right track, and then that was it. He is probably the greatest ever leader that China ever produced. That was it. Beyond that, there's no more. And good, innovative businessmen, talents like Jack Ma are being shut down. You are too smart, too talented. The government gets threatened and take away your wealth. Can you imagine? I mean, even you put Elon Musk there, he's not going to survive and thrive in China. Xi Jinping will also remove him and take away all his money. Unlike America, Elon Musk today is like 600 billion.
I mean, so here we are at this juncture. We've covered quite a bit. With respect to where then I think I said before in terms of the positioning of China and America and how it's changing the world dynamics, right? We have huge exports to China. We have huge exports to America. So we can't afford either economy to actually go bonkers, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, you have an imbalance as far as America is concerned in terms of their trade, and they're doing something about it.
Yeah.
And I have to say one thing, and I mean, some of us may not like it because this part of the world we tend to be a bit more tribal in our sense of looking at the Western world and all that type of thing. But reality bites, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So where do you think what's the end dynamic that we will see happening with this China-US competition and how it impacts the globe?
As far as US is concerned, I look at the economy and all those things that Trump has done. It's having a revival. Basically, US is on the way back up. So much so that Trump is saying that I reduce. He has reduced the trade deficit by 500 billion. Right? And then he's saying that some of the tariffs he's going to announce a refund, a tax refund for a lot of American taxpayers, at least about $2,000 US dollars. So they're going to have a pretty good Christmas, pretty good New Year, and a lot of. I think he's also very smart because he's going into 2026 next year. Midterms is coming up, election is coming up. So the best way is that you do a tax refund and everybody gets money. And the gas price in US now, I think out of 50 states, I think 39 states, the gas price have gone below $3. I mean, in Trump's time, it was like 4 or 5. So inflation is held at bay. So U.S. is actually basically poised to go up further, whereas China has already peaked, and China challenges is now coming up, and with all this national security by U.S. and they are being kind of muscled out of the Western hemisphere, so now they have got in only the Eastern hemisphere and Asia. And that also is very competitive now. There are so many countries in Asia.
They don't work well with Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the India and China has got competing interests, if you ask me.
Yes.
It is a very funny relationship. Yeah. It's you've got China backing up Pakistan.
Exactly. So India is not going to be happy. So that is why US saw that opportunity. I mean, US is playing both sides. They are also in Pakistan. They are also in India. And they are smart because they are just stirring up all this thing so that India is like unhappy with China. So they are using India as a kind of a proxy battle against China. So they don't have to personally go and fix China. India will do it. Right? So same thing. And India's relationship with Russia has always been good. So that's one way to basically pry and destroy that dragon bear relationship between China and Russia.
I don't know. I mean, you ask me. I think knowing the Russian, or at least as much as I read of Russian culture, okay, they're pretty proud people themselves. Yeah, they've had a huge empire. They were the victors of World War II. Right? I think Putin, or even after Putin, I mean, he wants to see a revival of the of the Russian sphere of influence as a superpower.
Yes.
Right? I don't think he liked the idea that where he is right now, where actually he's subordinate to
China. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a junior partner.
Like a junior partner, absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
So I think there is a reckoning coming up in China, and it needs the leadership is where it's gonna happen, and I don't know how it's gonna happen. I've read some rumblings. I mean, I thought the fourth plenum was gonna be the at least you can see some movement. Nothing happened really. So, where do we conclude here?
Well, China has its work cut out for it. There's a lot of problems they need to do. The reforms, and they definitely need to make some tough decisions and get things going. They can't just keep sweeping it down and kick the can further down the road and then leave it. So this is what they have been doing, just managing and making sure that nothing goes broken. and goes on and on. Like you keep asking the question, how long is this going to be sustainable? So that's a multi-million-dollar question. So they will keep it as long as possible sustainable. So long that they will keep it bound. That's how they play the game. So until such time, things can change. Whereas US is different. US is now on the rise. And US is also now talking about creating a new kind of Europe. Instead of MAGA, now it's MEGA. Make Europe great again.
Yeah.
MEGA. And he has singled out 4 European countries that are going to be the new Europe. Poland, Italy, Austria, and one more. What is that? I think that one more country, 4 countries.
Yeah.
So this is quite interesting because I think it could be one way to dismantle the old Europe and Europe. I think Trump is not against Europe. I think he doesn't like EU, the European Union, which actually is very woke and very globalist and all that. And they're causing him a lot of problems. These are the people who are unelected but decided a lot of things about Ukraine and everything else and keep pushback. So if he can change the whole of Europe, he will change it. And now he even talks about a new alliance, Core 5, C5.
Well, this is where I always tell people, actually, the difference in terms of how a political system allows for a change. It's the same as a company. Elon had this to say about a nation. He said, the government is the ultimate corporation, right?
Yes.
And it's not. It functions actually, or ideologically, it has to work in the same way, in the sense that when structurally you need a reformation or a re-engineering or a restructuring, America is capable to do that because why? Every 4 years you can change the executive position.
Yes.
And that has an immense impact on how policies are done and carried out. And you can only stay on for 2 terms.
Yes.
So there is a natural phenomena of restructuring, so to speak, or reformation.
Yeah, but
whether you like it or not.
The timeline is there.
Yeah.
So speed is of the essence.
Yeah.
You don't have all the time in the world to get it done. That's why Trump is working like crazy, super speed. Everything comes very fast. Right? So that is why every day people are looking at what Trump is doing, what is he saying.
I mean, like when people say, oh, China has a 100-year map or a 200-year map. Look, guys, I want to change in my lifetime. I want change not just in my lifetime, but I want change that improve the lifetime. By the time, if I have children, they go to school, the system is ready for them to when they go out to work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't care about your 100-year shit.
Yeah. It's too long.
Yeah. I mean, it's only good for the people in power, if you ask me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perpetuate the whole of power forever there. 100 years if possible.
Yeah. On that note, I think we will we will call it a session on this podcast.
Yeah.
There are so much more that we want to cover that we'll take it up in maybe another segment.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah? So thank you so much. Like, subscribe. Let's build this community of gutshot and of intelligent conversation and critical thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.